Hello, my name is Adriana and today I will be going over my stats and doing a goals check-in for the second quarter of 2023. So let's go ahead and get started with some stats, the good juicy stuff, with what is becoming one of my absolute favorite graphs to look at now, and that is my pages per quarter or pages read over the course of the year. I don't know what you want to call it, but here it is. So the purple line at the top you can see is 2023 this year, and I am just so far ahead of reading ever since I started tracking my channel. It's crazy. It's crazy how much more I am reading, and this is just physical pages. This does not include my audiobooks. It's mind-boggling how much more I'm reading. And you can see in this graph my reading tends to uptick in that third quarter, kind of fourth quarter time frame, second half of the year. My reading tends to increase a little bit, so I am anticipating seeing that again. Who knows? We'll see, but it's great. So here is another two graphs, both pie charts as you can see. The top one is the actual store which I purchased my books from this year of 2023. As you can see, most of them come from my local indie bookstore, which is great. I love that I am spending most of my money, 30% of the money I've spent on books this year has been going to my local bookstore, which I love, love, love. And then the bottom one here, you can see I've just kind of lumped it into kind of different categories: indie bookstores, book subscriptions, used books, which typically refers to Pango books, and I don't know what the other is. And then a big bookstore, which for me is typically Barnes & Noble, or maybe the other is Costco or something, I don't know. But again, you can see here, most of my books are coming from indie bookstores. Another big chunk is coming from book subscriptions, which I am anticipating that going down over the course of the year. I have canceled my Fairy Loot subscription. I'm just down to the Illumicrate subscription now. And I am not super sure how I feel about that one now. So I might be getting off book subscriptions entirely unless I find kind of just a different vibe. I'm just not really into the whole special edition book subscription right now. I think I'd rather go to something that's a little more curated rather than just new releases. But we'll have to see how I end up on that. Next up we have my ratings chart. I haven't go from 5 to 2. 2 is the lowest I have scored this year, and then the blank is just books I gave no rating to. So I'm actually 4 and no rating are my top ratings that I give out. I give out a lot of 4s and I don't rate a lot of books. So that's kind of interesting to see. If I could have lumped the 3.75 into either the 3, I'm still learning this whole Google Looker Studio thing. I have kind of a normal-ish distribution in that high 3 to low 4 range, which feels pretty on par. I feel like a high 3 to low 4 is kind of where I want my reading to sit. Next up we have my genre breakdown, mostly fantasy. Then we have kind of mystery, adventure, thriller, historical fiction, nonfiction, literary fiction, and sci-fi. Like I've said in the past, I'd like to see that sci-fi go up, but for some reason I'm just having a hard time really fitting it in. Here we have my sources pie chart where I am getting my books from. Number 1 is the library. I love my local library, get a lot of ebooks, get a lot of audiobooks. Basically all of my audiobooks come from the library. Another big chunk of them is coming from the publisher, either physical ARCs I've received or e-ARCs from NetGalley. Another chunk is books I have bought, and when I say I buy a book, I buy it in the last 3 to 4 months. So it's kind of I buy it and then almost immediately read it, versus owned, which is a book I've had kind of past that 3 to 4 month range, that I just bought it one day and then it just sat on a shelf and I never prioritized it. So that's kind of my soft distinction. It's kind of whatever I'm feeling at the moment, whether or not I put it into a bought category or an owned category. And then a few of my books I have borrowed from friends or family. Next up here is format of the books I'm reading. A solid third of them are audiobooks, another solid third are ebook, and then the next third is like physical, split between hardback and paperback. More so leaning in hardback in the physical kind of category because I've been reading a lot more new releases, and new releases tend to be hardback. This next one makes a lot of sense. This is my audience pie chart. I mostly read adults or like general audience. Like when I say adult, I don't mean it has like adult content, but it's just more so geared toward adults or a more general audience versus being specifically written for young adult or middle grade. But yeah, I typically don't read books written toward younger people. And then finally, this one I just threw in because I was curious. This is my Greek mythology versus not Greek mythology. 21% of my books I've read this year have been associated with Greek mythology. Whether or not they are like Greek mythology retellings or just kind of like inspired by Greek mythology. Like, why am I struggling right now? The Lost Heroes, second Percy Jackson series. 20%. 1 in 5 books I have read this year have been Greek mythology related, which is insanity, but like I'm obsessed with it. I love it. So those are all my nice pretty graphs. Let's get into some hard numbers and some goals check-ins. So my first goal was to match my page count from 2022. I was really happy with where I ended up there at 22,262 pages. So I am currently at 12,703, so I'm actually a bit ahead of schedule. You know, if I forecast that out just linearly, that would put me at 25,200-ish pages for the course of the year, and that feels really good. I really, really like that. Yeah, so I'm definitely on track for that. My next goal was to read the Odyssey and the Iliad. I feel like I might have to limit that down to just the Odyssey because I still haven't bought a copy of the Iliad and we're halfway through the year and I haven't cracked open my copy of the Odyssey. So we might just... The Iliad is a stretch goal. The Odyssey is still on there. I still want to read that book. The next goal was to read Shadow of the Gods. And like, I keep telling myself I'm saving it for the fall time because like epic fantasy is, you know, a good fall vibe. But at the same time, I'm also just procrastinating because that's who I am as a person. This next goal is not going great. My goal was to reduce my physical TBR by 50% down to 16 books. And my physical TBR, according to my spreadsheet, is at 37, which means I am doing worse with my physical TBR than I was last year. It is what it is. We're doing our best. This next goal, we'll see. It was to reduce book spending by 25%, that hard number being $797.03. So far this year, I have spent $660.80. So I'm still technically below it, but if we forecast my spending out, that puts me at about $1,300. Forecasting that I'm going to spend more than I did last year, which is not ideal. And then my last goal was to keep my NetGalley score above 75%. This one I'm actually really, really close. My current NetGalley score is at 73%. So, I mean, that's like one book. That's like reading one arc, reviewing one more arc, and hopefully not, you know, going on a request spree and getting like 7 more. So that is my stats check-in. That is my goals check-in. I'm actually, you know, at least meeting a few of my goals right now as opposed to my Q1 check-in, but we'll see how I do. I mean, at this point, I don't know if the physical TBR is actually gonna work. Let's see, I'm currently sitting at 37 books. I want to get down to 16. I mean, I have to read 21 books, which is not unreasonable considering I'm at like 57 books for this half of the year, but that would mean basically half of my reading for the next 6 months would have to come from my TBR shelf. And as we saw in my sources, 2/3 of my books are coming from external areas like the library or publishers. So I don't know. I don't know if I can really commit myself to having half of my books read in the next 6 months actually coming from my TBR shelf. We will have to see. And then as far as spending, that one, we just do our best and hope for the best. And, you know, things happen. But those are all the things. So please let me know any of your important stats for the year. Most read genre, number of pages, number of audiobooks, number of books in general. Are you meeting your goals? I'd love to talk about it down in the comments. And thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.